Welcome to today's video, where we explore the precious teachings of Jesus that help us overcome the challenges in life, especially for those facing burdens and difficulties in their later years. Have you ever felt tired, stressed, or simply worried about things beyond your control? Have you ever felt as though you're standing before an insurmountable wall, unsure of where to go or what to do? We all know that life is not always easy, and for those who have lived many years, the challenges can seem even more overwhelming. But don't worry, because Jesus has given us wonderful promises in the Bible to help us find peace, hope, and strength to face every difficulty. If you're seeking comfort, strength, and unwavering faith in life, stay with us for the entire video. We will share inspirational advice that will help you overcome all trials, and most importantly, find inner peace for your soul. May you always be blessed by God, living a life full of love, peace, and hope. 1. As we enter our later years, a stage where time seems to pass more quickly than ever, many of us begin to feel the weight on our shoulders. It could be the burden of past memories, the irreplaceable losses, or simply the physical challenges that aging brings. Facing these challenges, we often feel weary, lost, and even uncertain if we have the strength to keep confronting the struggles of life. But in these moments, there is a promise we cannot overlook, the invitation of Jesus in Matthew 11 verse 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. So, when aging brings its burdens and challenges, how do we find peace within ourselves and in our relationship with God? How do we overcome the loneliness, exhaustion, and anxiety that many of us face in our later years? Throughout our lives, we have experienced countless ups and downs. The joys, the sorrows, the failures, and successes. All of these contribute to our life journey. But as we grow older, we can easily notice that what we once considered important may not seem as meaningful anymore. Our bodies are no longer as strong as they once were, and we begin to feel the emptiness that comes with the loss of loved ones, friends, or even the familiar things in life. But don't be discouraged. It is precisely in these moments that Jesus invites us to come closer to Him. He is not only our spiritual strength, but also the place where we can find comfort, peace, and true rest for our weary souls. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This is an unconditional promise from God to all of us, especially in old age when we most need help and support. Perhaps you are feeling lonely, feeling that life is no longer what it once was. You may have lost many loved ones, and the conversations have become fewer and farther between. But you are not facing this alone. God is always with you, ready to help you find peace in your soul. Sometimes all we need is His presence in our lives, and that is something He is always willing to give us. As an older person, you may feel like you can no longer do the things you used to do. Perhaps you feel your health is not what it once was, and the dreams and plans you once had are no longer as easily achievable. But God never turns away anyone who comes to Him. He is not only a refuge, but also the source of strength and hope for all of us, no matter what age we are. When you feel weary, in pain, or lonely, turn to God. Seek Him through prayer, through contemplating His love, through the teachings of the Bible. These will help you find the peace you are seeking. God promises that He will bring rest to those who come to Him. And this rest is not just sleep, but the calmness of the soul and the strength to face life's challenges. You may be asking yourself, how can I find joy and peace in my old age? The simple yet profound answer is to find God in every moment. When we can no longer find security in the material world, when we can no longer rely on our bodies to do everything, God is the only place where we can find true protection and peace. Remember that the peace God promises is not the absence of difficulty, but His presence in those difficulties. When you come to Him and lay your burdens before Him, you will receive priceless help that no one else can offer. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of prayer, a time of quiet reflection to feel God's presence in your life, and you will feel much lighter. God's invitation is not just for the young, but for all of us, no matter our age. Old age is not a time of ending, but a time to reflect on life, to experience God's love, and to pass on that love to others. You may not have the strength to do everything you once did, but you can still do meaningful things, things that bring joy to others, and above all, you can live a life full of faith and hope. So, are you ready to come to God and seek comfort in Him? Even if you are facing difficult challenges in your later years, remember that God is always with you, always ready to welcome you into His loving arms. You are not alone on this journey. God will always be the place where you can find rest and peace, helping you overcome life's challenges with faith and hope in Him. Open your heart and let God guide you through each day of your life. The comfort, peace, and strength He offers will help you find joy and purpose, even in old age. Two, in life, we inevitably face challenges, difficulties, and sometimes we must deal with those who do not treat us kindly. Could be an old friend, a colleague, or even a family member. They may hurt us with their words, actions, or unfair decisions. And when hurt like this, our natural reaction is often to feel anger, hatred, and a desire to avoid them. But in Matthew 5 verse 44, Jesus teaches us a completely different perspective on love. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This teaching from Jesus is not just advice. It is a profound principle of life that we need to apply in our everyday lives. Loving our enemies and praying for those who harm us is not easy. Certainly, in moments of anger and hurt, we may find this concept difficult to accept, or even unimaginable. But it is precisely in these moments that Jesus' words become more important than ever. Why love our enemies, those who have hurt us? When we look through human eyes, loving our enemies seems impossible, completely contrary to our natural emotions. But when we look through the eyes of God, we realize that love is not an act of emotion. It is a choice. God's love does not discriminate, does not come with conditions. He loves us not because we deserve it, but because He chooses to love us, even when we are undeserving. When we love our enemies, we not only follow Jesus' teachings, but we also free ourselves from anger and hatred. Hatred and anger are emotions that trap us in the past, preventing us from moving forward and living a peaceful life. But when we pray for and love those who have hurt us, we not only bring peace to ourselves but also to others. Praying for our enemies can be one of the hardest things we can do, but it is a powerful act of forgiveness and love. When we pray for those who harm us, we not only pray for their change but also ask God to help us find peace in our own hearts. We pray for God to change the hearts of those who mistreat us, and at the same time we ask God to free us from the anger and hurt within. There is a story in the Bible about a man named Stephen, who was stoned to death for his faith in Jesus. In his final moments, as he was being stoned, Stephen did not harbor hatred or curse those attacking him. Instead, he prayed, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." Acts 7 verse 60. This is a powerful symbol of unconditional love, a living testament to Jesus' teaching, to love our enemies and pray for those who harm us. When we love and pray for our enemies, we learn to free ourselves from the captivity of anger and resentment. We do not allow the negative actions of others to affect our souls and peace of mind. Instead of letting hatred dominate, we allow God's love to fill our hearts. This love will soothe the wounds of our hearts, and gradually, it will help us realize that those who hurt us are also human beings with their own pain, weaknesses, and need for God's salvation. You may be wondering, how can I love those who have hurt me? The answer is not immediate change, but rather a process. When you pray for your enemies, it's not about feeling love instantly, but about putting yourself in a position for God to work in your heart. You are creating an opportunity for Him to change you, to transform your perspective on others and yourself. Loving your enemies doesn't mean you agree with what they have done. It means you choose not to let them control your heart and mind. You choose peace, you choose forgiveness, and you choose love. The love Jesus teaches is not easy, but it is a strong love, one that helps us overcome pain, hatred, and creates a better world. So, when you face challenges in relationships, when you are hurt and feel it is hard to forgive, remember Jesus' teaching, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This is the path to true peace in your soul. Are you ready to love and pray for those who have hurt you? Surely, when you do, you will not only change them but also change yourself, drawing closer to God and living in His love. 3. Prayer is an essential part of our relationship with God. It provides us with the opportunity to open our hearts, express our deepest feelings, and receive comfort and guidance from Him. However, in Matthew 6 verse 7, Jesus teaches us an important principle about prayer. And when you pray, do not use vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. This is a gentle yet profound reminder that prayer does not need to be long, extravagant, or complicated. What matters most is that it comes from the heart and is sincere. In today's world, many people tend to think that prayer needs to be lengthy, complex, or filled with flowery words in order to impress God. We may easily fall into the trap of thinking that the longer we pray, or the more we pray, the more likely God is to hear us and respond. But that is not what God desires from us. What He seeks is not the quantity of words or the time spent in prayer, but the sincerity of our hearts. Prayer is not a performance. It is a direct, honest conversation with God. Just as we speak to a close friend, we don't need to worry about using complicated or elaborate words. We simply need to open our hearts, speak our thoughts and feelings, and God will listen. The most important thing in prayer is sincerity and honesty in our hearts. Surely you have experienced times when you prayed out of anxiety, fear, or sorrow. In those moments, you may feel that you cannot find the right words to express your emotions. But do not worry, because God understands exactly what you are going through. He does not require us to pray perfectly. He only asks that we approach Him with a humble and sincere heart. There are times when we don't need to say much for God to understand. Even a simple, short prayer can carry all the sincerity of our heart. For example, when we feel tired and need comfort, simply saying, "Lord, please help me overcome this fatigue and bring peace to my soul," is enough. A prayer like this can open a sacred space where we can feel God's presence. Jesus also taught us the Lord's Prayer, which is very short but contains everything necessary for our relationship with God. We don't need to add anything to it or change it in any way because every word in it is full of meaning and power. What matters is that we pray with a sincere heart, not for the sake of formality or the number of words. Prayer is also not about asking for everything we want. God is not a giver that we can petition for our desires. Prayer is a time to seek closeness with God, to give thanks for the blessings He has already given, and to recognize His will in our lives. When we pray sincerely, we not only ask for ourselves, but also pray for others, for those in need, and for good things to happen. In difficult times, prayer can be the way we find peace in our souls. God will never abandon us, and as long as we come to Him with a sincere heart, He will listen and respond. Sometimes, prayer does not need to be long because God knows what we need even before we ask. What matters is that we open our hearts, giving Him our worries, joy, and gratitude. Prayer is not just about asking. It is a way to build a close relationship with God. When we pray, we allow ourselves to feel God's presence in our lives, and in those moments, we also learn to live humbly, in love, and in the forgiveness of God. Prayer doesn't need to be complicated or lengthy. It just needs to be heartfelt and sincere, like a child coming to their father without hiding anything. So, are you praying with sincerity? Do you believe that even a short, heartfelt prayer is enough for God to listen and act? Don't worry about saying a lot or saying little. Just pray with all your heart, and God will always be near and respond to your prayer. The story of Mr. John, boundless love. Mr. John had lived a long life, full of challenges and significant events. A wealthy and successful man, he often found himself feeling lonely. Over the years, he had built a business empire, living in a luxurious mansion, but love and true closeness were always absent. Everything he owned, from expensive cars to lavish parties, couldn't fill the emptiness in his heart. His life changed when he reconnected with an old friend, Henry, a retired priest who had spent most of his time serving the community. After meeting again on a rainy evening in a small cafe, John listened as Henry shared about his life. a life full of love and sacrifice, particularly for those who could not repay him. Henry's words were like a light shining into John's soul, a beacon in the darkness of his loneliness. One thing Henry said that John would never forget was, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Matthew 5 verse 44. How can I love those who have harmed me? Those who betrayed me in business and made me lose true friends in the past? John asked Henry, his eyes full of doubt. Henry smiled but didn't respond immediately. Instead, he told John a story about a man in the village named Sam. Sam had been exploited and deceived many times by his neighbors. Yet, Sam always treated them with compassion and love, holding no grudges. Eventually, the neighbors noticed the change in Sam and began to treat him with respect and gratitude. Sam had done what many thought was impossible. He had changed the lives of those who harmed him through love and forgiveness. John sat silently, lost in thought. His heart was full of questions and doubts. How can I love those who have made my life so painful? That evening, John returned home with a heart full of conflicting emotions. He couldn't stop thinking about Henry's story. Despite having everything, he still lacked one crucial thing: peace within himself. Could it be that loving his enemies was the key to finding the peace he had been searching for all these years? The next day, John decided to try what Henry had suggested. He began praying, not only for himself but also for those who had harmed him. His heart still carried many wounds, but as he prayed to God, he began to feel peace and faith in the forgiveness and love that God had taught. The following week, when John met with an old business partner who had once deceived him, he did something he never thought he could do. He shook his partner's hand with a smile. "I want to leave the past behind and start fresh," he said, his voice full of sincerity. His partner's surprised look made John feel something strange. But in his heart, the feeling of liberation was overwhelming. He no longer felt controlled by the past, and he felt free. In the days that followed, John no longer felt weighed down by hatred. Each morning, he prayed for everyone in his life, even for those who had hurt him. He realized that, in truth, love was not just to please others but was also a way to free himself from the burdens in his heart. A month later, while visiting a poor community in the suburbs, John met a man named David. David had been looked down upon by society, but he always helped those in need, even though he had little to offer himself. When John saw David sharing a meal with a poor family, his heart was deeply moved. "David, how can you do that?" he asked. "Aren't you afraid of being taken advantage of?" David smiled and replied, "I'm not worried about being exploited. What I fear is not loving enough, not doing enough to make the world a better place. Love is the only key to freedom, not just for others but for ourselves." David's words were a reminder to John. He realized that love wasn't easy, but it was the only path to true peace. From that point on, John not only lived with love in his heart but also became an inspiration to those around him about forgiveness and unconditional love. And in the end, he not only found peace within himself, but also realized that he was living a truly meaningful life.